Jude, great to have you on the show. As you can hear, the banking sector performing quite well. I mean, what's your take? Are you optimistic for Q2? Because it seems like the banking sector has everything going for it right now.
I agree with you. Absolutely, the banking sector has done very well. In fact, if you look at the statistics today, you'll find that on the top gainers chart, 10 top gainers, 2 banks accounted for the top 10. When it comes to the number of deals, you have 7 banks accounted for the top 10. On the value of transactions, banks accounted for 6 out of the 10. And indeed, for volume, banks accounted for 9 out of the 10. So overall, I think the banks have done very well, with Zenith Bank, First Bank, GT Bank, and Union Bank showing very strong performances across the board.
Well, Jude, let's talk about the laggards. I mean, suddenly Skybank, FCMB not looking good. And I want to focus on FCMB. That stock lost 3 kobo today and, of course, has been losing consistently for a while now. Now, of course, analysts say this could be because their merger with Finbank doesn't seem to be going so well. What is your take?
I think I agree. That merger hasn't come on very well over the months, but I think FCMB is working very hard at it. It's not very easy. It will appear that the merger between Intercontinental Bank and Access Bank went on smoothly. It wasn't that smooth either there, but I think FCMB is having more challenges integrating Finbank into the operations. But I believe in the next 1 or 2 months, they'll be through with it.
Very quickly, what's your take on Skybank then? Certainly we know what's up with FCMB, but what about Skybank?
Well, Skybank hasn't done very badly. They gained 3 kobo today at the close of business. So relatively, I think they've not done badly. And Skybank over the years have done well for themselves, and it's a good and strong bank. In terms of future price for Skybank, I think is on the uptick. I believe that their stock will continue to rise in value in the next 1 or 2 months.
Well, Jude, let's look at the sector in general, and certainly the issues that may hamper some of that growth we've been seeing in the banking sector. Now, one thing that did come up is the recent currency issuing of a new currency note by the CBN. They issued a new 5,000 naira note. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of pessimistic views to this, but I'd love to get your take as a retail banker. How do you think this impacted your sector?
Well, I think the real issue in retail banking is just the small numbers. But I think most Nigerians have shown that they're not very comfortable handling coins. Coins are not in very good use in Nigeria as they are somewhere in Europe or say in England. So I think the coins may not augur very well in terms of payments and receipts of those things as units of exchange. But when it comes to the 5,000 naira note, I don't think it's for retail bankers. That might be for the corporate bankers. So overall, I don't think it bodes very well for retail banking. But in the larger corporate environment, the 5,000 naira note may well be okay.
Well, we actually have some numbers coming out of the central bank as well. They said real GDP was up 6.6% year on year in Q2. Of course, this is compared to a 6.2% in the previous quarter. Now, how do you think this is going to bear on small and medium enterprises like retail bankers like you deal with this sector particularly? What do you think these numbers mean for the SMEs?
Well, I think if GDP is rising year on year at 6.6% and the credit growth is rising by 4.7%, what it does bode is that actually most what is happening in the real sector, especially SMEs, is equity driven. So people are using their own money to do business and not borrowing from banks. And I don't think this is very good in one sense, because we think that the GDP growth could be higher indeed if the credit growth was higher. With the way it's looking, in fact, the credit growth will even slow a little bit more, and that's not good for the SMEs. This is the time I believe that we should focus more attention in terms of granting credit or access to finance the SMEs in Nigeria.
So you do mean, does this mean more economic activity for SMEs or not? Because I mean, they also released some numbers saying credit growth only grew by 4.7% in the year to July. So I mean, how does this impact credit growth and economic activity for the small and medium enterprises?
It does. I know most of the loans, actually, the 4.7% growth went more to the corporate than MSMEs. There are very few banks that are lending to small and medium scale enterprises. So if you look at the share of that growth, they will have received a smaller number of it. I'm saying that a larger percentage of that credit growth should go to MSMEs. And I think the Central Bank of Nigeria is coming up with some initiative that will encourage banks to lend to that segment of the business.
Now, Jude, with all of this, I mean, we're seeing slower credit growth, GDP growth going up. And of course, analysts are saying that with all this, there's a small possibility of easing at the next Monetary Policy Committee meeting. Now, how do you feel this will impact the banking business and, of course, rates going forward if we see the MPC easing? I mean, there's just a small possibility, and also there's a possibility of them keeping rates flat. What is your take on how this will impact your business?
What we must also keep in mind is that banks are approaching their financial year end. Every bank's financial year end is December 31st. Okay, so usually when banks approach the last quarter, they begin to slow down on credit growth and begin to play more in the equities and fixed interest income market. So I don't think that if interest rates were to come down a bit or lower, the monetary policy rate is lower by maybe 100 basis points, that is going to change much. Banks are going to slow down a bit in kind of credits they are going to grant to the businesses. So I foresee that rate may be cut a bit, but it will not have the impact that would be expected in the credit growth.
So in a nutshell, your outlook for the sector continues to remain quite strong. Well, it looks like we're having some signal issues with Jude there. Thank you so much for joining us, though, Jude, and giving us your take on what's happening over in the retail banking sector. That was Jude Anele, Head of Retail Banking at Diamond Bank.